On behalf of Guinness World Records, I can now confirm you have achieved a new record title for not only for the most expensive Pokémon card ever sold at auction, but also the overall record for the most expensive trading card ever sold at auction.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Are you ready, bro?
A few weeks back, I broke down how Logan Paul once again found himself in serious drama with the Pokémon and trading card world in 2022. He went all in on Pokémon, building tons of content around it, dropping millions on rare cards and sealed packs, and even getting caught up in a very public scam along the way. It was flashy, it was loud, and it had the whole collector community watching. Then came the big pivot. Logan teamed up with a group of business partners to launch something called Liquid Marketplace. The pitch sounded modern and bold. Investors would be able to buy fractional shares of high-value physical assets like trading cards and sports memorabilia. The whole system would run through blockchain technology, which they promoted as secure and transparent. It was marketed as the future of collecting. The headline attraction, the real centerpiece, was this promise that Logan would sell 51% fractional ownership of one of the rarest Pokémon cards on the planet, a PSA 10 Pikachu Illustrator. That card alone created massive buzz. Fast forward a few years, and Liquid Marketplace has completely unraveled. Legal disputes have surfaced around the project, and from the outside, it looks like Logan has quietly stepped away while the fallout continues. He later posted on Twitter in 2024 that he had repurchased the fractional portion of the card, saying the move was fully aligned with the original Liquid Marketplace terms. According to him, it was all handled properly and by the book. But what really caught people's attention was how he started speaking about the platform like he was barely involved, almost like he was just a bystander watching it unfold.
What's up, y'all? Logan here. As an avid collector and strategic investor myself, I am so stoked to announce the launch of Liquid Marketplace, a platform where collectors can buy and sell fractions of rare collectibles via tokens on the blockchain. As a co-founder of Liquid Marketplace,
that raised eyebrows fast, especially since he had previously positioned himself as the face of the entire project. And that's exactly why frustration exploded when he announced he'd be teaming up with Ken Golden from the Netflix series King of Collectibles to auction off that same Pikachu Illustrator card. The deal reportedly included a large advance payment for Logan, plus a share of whatever the card ultimately sells for. That announcement sent the community into a spiral. Collectors immediately started asking the obvious question: what happened to the fractional ownership? If people previously bought shares, how does this new auction fit into that? Some creators in the Pokémon space also began raising concerns about the card's PSA 10 grade. They pointed to visible flaws and suggested the card may have been resubmitted multiple times before eventually landing that perfect score. Those claims sparked even more debate across forums and social media. Now, Logan recently shared an update saying Liquid Marketplace informed him that unclaimed funds had been released and could now be withdrawn. He even posted a link to the site, which had previously been offline, allowing former users to log back in and access their accounts. That development led many to question what investors actually owned in the first place. Were they holding real equity or just a promise tied to a platform that no longer operates? Over the past month, Logan has heavily promoted the upcoming auction. At the same time, several users claimed they were blocked after posting critical comments. One now deleted post showed Logan writing about the card's journey, calling it a privilege to own what he described as the greatest collectible in the world, highlighting his Guinness World Records mention, WWE debut moment, Netflix spotlight, and national media coverage. The tone was celebratory, but the controversy surrounding it clearly hasn't faded.
What do you tell that group of young investors out there?
I think if you have the money, don't be afraid to take a risk, especially if you're young. Young people have a ton of energy. I had a lot of energy when I was younger. I'm 30 now and I'm Unc and I have a daughter, I'm a dad, and so I have way less energy. But if you're young,
the night before the auction closed, Logan posted that the card would find a new home through Golden Auctions. One user commented, reminding everyone that fractional owners once co-owned the Pikachu Illustrator. That person was reportedly blocked, and that's been part of the tension this entire time. The promotional post kept rolling out, polished and dramatic, while critics say basic questions were being shut down. At the same time, Logan leaned fully into what he does best, marketing. He understands attention better than almost anyone online. Whether it's hype, celebration, or controversy, he knows how to keep eyes locked in. But when you mix that strategy with an already frustrated investor base, things heat up fast. It didn't help that his comment sections were often limited or turned off, which only added to the perception that people weren't being heard. When auction night finally arrived, Logan live-streamed the entire event. The tension was high. Then came the moment someone placed a $12.5 million bid. His reaction was loud, stunned, repeating "no way" over and over as the number flashed across the screen. It was a spectacle. Shortly after, the final hammer reportedly landed around $16.5 million, setting a new world record for the most expensive card ever sold at auction, surpassing a previous record held by a high-profile Kobe Bryant card. The celebration was instant. Confetti, champagne, the whole show. Eventually, the winning bidder was brought on stage, and the moment felt historic. But while that record-breaking sale was being celebrated, others were still focused on the liquid marketplace situation. Logan recently shared that unclaimed funds from the platform had been released and could now be withdrawn. Supporters say that's a positive step. Critics argue it came years later, after people believed they were part of something groundbreaking. Inflation.
There are ways to spend and invest your money in ways that might mean more to you than a traditional conservative investment like the stock market. Whether it's a trading card, a piece of art, a piece of a dinosaur, like a sports memorabilia, game worn, anything.
Birkin bags. They're beating the stock market. Their appreciation.
And you're absolutely right.
Beanie Babies. Some of the stuff could be faddish. There's no inherent value to it. Like a Beanie Baby,
Sure.
It'll crash.
Sure. It's entirely possible. You gotta be careful with what you're investing in.
Or trade out of it quick.
Or trade out of it.
Opportunity cost and lost time became part of the online debate. Some pointed out that money tied up for years could have been used elsewhere. That frustration hasn't disappeared. Watching it all unfold raises a bigger conversation about wealth and collectibles at this level. When someone already has massive resources, spending 8 figures on a single card feels unreal to everyday viewers. It highlights how different financial realities can be. For some, it's history being made. For others, it's a reminder of how uneven the game can feel. As time passes and perspectives shift, moments like this hit differently. The spectacle is impressive, no doubt, but the questions around the journey to get there are still part of the story, and they aren't going away anytime soon. Some people watching this whole situation feel like it's never enough. No matter how big the win is, the appetite just keeps growing. More deals, more headlines, more money, more attention. Even my little dog started barking while I was recording, like she sensed the chaos in the air. The energy around this whole thing feels intense. From one angle, Logan just pulled off one of the biggest collectible flips in history. A reported $16.5 million sale is massive by any standard. But from another angle, critics say it looks like wealthy insiders trading expensive assets back and forth while everyday fans are left confused about where they stand. That contrast is what keeps fueling the conversation. When the winning bidder came on stage and the celebration kicked off, the vibe was loud and theatrical.
A very hard decision to make, but yes, I will be listing this card on a platform that I co-founded called Liquid Marketplace. It allows co-ownership of top-tier assets. So instead of one person, me owning this card, we as a collective can co-own it together. I'll also be listing it for $5 million instead of the $5.3 million I bought it for. So basically, I'll be giving you guys $300,000 discounts because everyone likes discounts. And I should say this, I'll be retaining 49% ownership of the card. So I won't actually have access to it. It'll be in our vault. But if I want to wear it out to fights or a Pokemon box break, or maybe even put it in a museum one day, the community can decide if we want to do it.
Cameras flashing, high fives, big reactions. For supporters, it was a historic hobby moment. For skeptics, it felt over the top. The symbolism of passing the torch made for a dramatic visual, but not everyone was cheering. Some viewers felt it looked less like community celebration and more like a victory lap in front of people who still had questions. And then came the next twist. During that same live stream, Logan introduced a brand new company called RIP. The concept? Exclusive access to RIP packs tied to real graded physical cards. Users could buy in, store cards in company vaults, or have them shipped directly. There's even a leaderboard system where referrals move you up the rankings for bigger rewards. The pitch is modern, gamified, social. Join the waitlist, invite friends, climb the board, unlock perks. To critics, it sounded very familiar. A tech-driven collectible platform with community engagement mechanics tied to high-value cards and potential upside. Some people immediately compared it to Liquid Marketplace and questioned whether lessons were fully learned. Others see it as a second attempt done more carefully. The resemblance sparked debate instantly. The referral structure also caught attention. Confirmed invites push users higher on a public leaderboard. For some, that's just smart viral marketing. For others, it feels like pressure to recruit friends into something they may not fully understand. Anytime money, collectibles, and social incentives mix together, people get cautious. That's just the reality in 2026. The strongest reactions came from those who felt burned before. They argued that launching a new platform while unresolved frustration still lingers doesn't sit right. From their perspective, celebrating record-breaking wins while some investors waited years to access funds feels tone-deaf. Supporters push back and say the fractional numbers were far smaller than many believed. That brings us to Logan's clarification post the morning after the auction. He stated that although he originally offered up to 51% of the Pikachu Illustrator for fractional sale, only 5.4% was actually purchased by investors in 2022. That amounted to around $270,000 total. In May 2024, he says he bought back that 5.4% at the same per-share price, consistent with the platform's terms, and funds were made available for withdrawal. If those numbers are accurate, the scale looks very different than what many assume. 5.4% is nowhere near majority control. Legally speaking, repurchasing at the same price may satisfy contractual obligations. Logan also explained that users reportedly had about a year to withdraw funds before the platform later went offline for reasons outside his control. Once he learned withdrawals were no longer possible, he says he personally funded efforts to get the site running again so users could access their money. On paper, that explanation answers some concerns, but emotionally, it doesn't close the gap for everyone. The big sticking point now is profit. If a card later sells for many times its previous valuation, some argue that early participants should share in that upside proportionally, even if not legally required. In their view, doing so would send a powerful message about loyalty and accountability. For example, if someone put in $10,000 during the fractional phase and the card later multiplied in value, critics believe a goodwill payout reflecting that growth would rebuild trust overnight. Supporters counter that investments come with risk and terms matter. It's a classic tension between legal responsibility and moral expectation. The truth probably lives somewhere in the gray area. The auction was undeniably historic. A $16.5 million sale is headline material. But the emotional memory of Liquid Marketplace still shapes how people interpret every new move. When trust takes a hit, it takes time to rebuild. Launching RIP, it right after such a massive sale guarantees that scrutiny will stay high. At this point, the community is split. Some see a savvy entrepreneur evolving with the market. Others see patterns that feel too familiar. What's clear is that Logan knows how to command attention. Whether that attention translates into long-term trust is something only time will reveal. Now, stepping back from the numbers, the live stream reactions, and the back and forth explanations, there's a bigger picture forming around this entire situation, because this isn't just about one card anymore. It's about reputation, it's about trust, and it's about how influence intersects with high-stakes money. When Logan first entered the Pokémon space in a serious way, he didn't come in quietly. He came in loud, bold, and ready to spend. Record purchases, viral unboxings, championship-level marketing. He turned collectible culture into mainstream entertainment. That alone reshaped the hobby in ways people still debate today. But with that level of influence comes responsibility. When someone with tens of millions of followers promotes a platform tied to investment-style mechanics, the expectations shift. It's no longer just hype content. It becomes financial territory. And once you cross into that lane, the audience isn't just watching for entertainment anymore. They're watching for accountability. Liquid Marketplace, at its core, blended collecting with fractional participation. The pitch felt revolutionary at the time. Own a piece of something historic. Be part of the journey. It tapped into the emotional side of fandom. That's powerful. But emotional marketing mixed with financial expectations can create long memories if things don't go smoothly. Even though Logan clarified that only 5.4% of the card was actually sold to fractional participants, the original headline of up to 51% stuck in people's minds. That initial framing created a perception of large-scale shared ownership. So when the record-breaking sale happened, many assumed a much bigger group had been involved. Perception doesn't always match paperwork, but perception drives reaction. The repurchase in 2024 at the original price may satisfy contractual terms. Legally, that may be clean. But emotionally, some early participants feel like they missed out on the upside of history. They watched the card appreciate massively while their involvement ended at break-even. In the world of investing, that happens all the time. But in the world of community-driven collectibles, people expect something more personal. That's why the conversation keeps circling back to goodwill. Not obligation, not legal duty, just goodwill. A gesture that says, you believed early, you helped build the momentum. Here's a share of the success. Whether that's realistic or not is another debate entirely, but it's the emotional core of the criticism. Then there's RIP. Launching a new platform so quickly after the biggest auction moment of your career is a bold move. Some would call it strategic timing. Capture attention while it's at its peak. Others see it as risky. When unresolved frustration still lingers in the background, introducing a similar style product invites immediate comparison. The structure of RIP, it leans heavily into gamification. Leaderboards, referrals, exclusive drops, vault storage. It creates urgency and status inside a digital ecosystem. That model works incredibly well in modern internet culture. People like competition, they like access, they like climbing ranks. But when money is attached, clarity becomes critical. If this new venture is going to succeed long-term, transparency will likely be the deciding factor. Clear terms, clear risks, clear ownership definitions. Because once trust takes even a small hit, audiences become hyper-aware. Every detail gets examined, every update gets dissected. That's just how online communities operate now. Another interesting layer here is the psychology of ultra-high-value collectibles. When a single trading card crosses 8 figures, it stops being just cardboard. It becomes a financial instrument. It becomes a symbol. It becomes a headline. That shift changes how people respond. It's no longer about nostalgia. It's about power, status, and market positioning. For everyday collectors who grew up opening packs at the kitchen table, watching a card hit $16.5 million feels surreal. Inspiring to some, alienating to others. It highlights the gap between hobbyist culture and investment culture. Logan has positioned himself at that exact intersection. That's both an advantage and a challenge. Supporters argue that he's simply evolving with the market. High-level deals, celebrity auctions, blockchain integration, that's the future, whether people like it or not. Critics argue that the future shouldn't leave early believers feeling sidelined. Both perspectives can exist at the same time. One thing that can't be denied is Logan's ability to command attention. The live stream numbers, the headlines, the reactions, he knows how to turn moments into events. But attention is only one part of the equation. Longevity requires trust, and trust requires consistency over time. If RIP, it delivers clearly defined value and avoids confusion around ownership structures, it could redefine his place in the space again. If it mirrors past complications, scrutiny will double. That's the reality of operating at this level in 2026. At the end of the day, the Pikachu Illustrator sale will always be remembered as a historic auction moment. Records were set, cameras rolled, a new chapter began. But alongside that history sits a parallel storyline about fractional promises, platform shutdowns, and investor expectations. Those two narratives now live together. One is celebratory, one is cautious. How Logan navigates the next few months will likely determine which narrative grows louder. Because in today's digital economy, success isn't just measured in dollars, it's measured in trust capital. And that's something no auction can instantly restore. And here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. This wasn't just one card sitting on a shelf somewhere. Reports indicate that thousands of different assets moved through that platform over time. Different collectibles, different investors, different expectations. So when people discuss Liquid Marketplace, they're not just talking about a single Pikachu Illustrator. They're talking about a much wider ecosystem that once promised shared ownership in high-value items. That's why emotions are still running high. It's not just nostalgia for a rare card. It's about people trying to understand what they really signed up for and whether the outcome matched the vision that was originally presented. When something is marketed as revolutionary, the follow-through has to be just as strong. Otherwise, questions don't disappear. They multiply. Then, almost like clockwork, another headline drops. Logan makes comments suggesting he's a better athlete than Tom Brady, or even anyone in the NFL. Now, confidence is part of his brand. He thrives on bold statements. But when you compare yourself to legends in professional sports, you're going to trigger reactions. Some fans laugh it off as hype, others roll their eyes. Either way, it keeps the spotlight right where he wants it. And that's part of the pattern people point to. Big moment, big sale, big celebration. Then another bold claim to keep the energy high. It's marketing at full throttle. But when that strategy overlaps with unresolved financial frustration, it can come across as tone-deaf to certain viewers. That's where the tension lives. Now let's circle back to the 5.4% figure. According to Logan's clarification, that was the actual portion sold to fractional participants, about $270,000 total. He says he repurchased those shares at the original price and made funds available for withdrawal. On paper, that checks the legal box. Contracts honored, terms followed, case closed. But critics argue that legality isn't the only standard here. They're focused on proportional upside. If the card later skyrocketed in value and made history at auction, They believe early participants should share in that growth, not because a contract demands it, but because loyalty deserves recognition. That's the emotional argument, and it's not going away anytime soon. Think about it this way. If someone believed in the vision early, put money in, and helped create buzz around the asset, only to watch it multiply in value later without them, that stings. Even if the paperwork says everything was handled properly, perception matters. And perception shapes reputation more than any fine print ever will. On the flip side, supporters say investments always carry risk, markets move, values fluctuate, timing is everything. They argue that Logan followed the structure laid out from the beginning and shouldn't be held responsible for emotional expectations beyond the agreement. That's a fair perspective too. What makes this situation so layered is that both sides feel justified. One side sees a savvy entrepreneur executing within legal boundaries. The other sees an opportunity for goodwill that could instantly repair trust. Somewhere between those two positions is the future of how his next venture will be received. And speaking of that next venture, RIP, it is already under a microscope. Leaderboards, referrals, exclusive drops, vault storage. It's gamified, fast-paced, and built for digital culture. But because of what happened before, every detail will be analyzed twice as hard. Transparency is going to be everything. At this point, the card has a new owner. The auction record is set, the headlines are written, but the conversation about how we got here is still very much alive. That's why I want to hear from you. Do you think everything was handled fairly? Do you believe buying back at the original price was enough? Or do you think sharing in the multiplier would have been the stronger move long term? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments below. If you appreciated this breakdown and want more deep dives into the stories shaping the collectibles and influencer world, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next upload, and share this video with anyone who's been following the saga. I'll see you in the next one.